right, we are back today, guys. We have Sean Patrick Flanery with us. Huge fan. I mean, I was a huge fan of the Boondock Saints even before I even knew that he trained jiu-jitsu. So you guys can just imagine, um, the level of respect I have for him, and just seeing a lot of his posts on Instagram. If you guys don't follow Sean on social media, just great. You can see he does a lot for jiu-jitsu and the sport. Owns an academy now. And recently moved to Texas. So really appreciate you coming on, Sean.
No, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So
well, you're from, wait, you're from Texas though, right, Sean? Originally, you're from
Texas?
I
was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana. But when I was 3, my dad got transferred to Houston, but we had to stop in Dallas for 6 months for him to train for a new job. So I spent 6 months in Dallas, but I mean, all my formative years were in Texas. I went to University of St. Thomas here, all my schooling, all through college. I didn't leave to go to LA until September 10th of '88, way back in the day. That's when I went to LA, and I've been out there ever since, up until 2015, when my mom and dad got sick. And so we bought a house about 100 yards from my dad's house. And, we were doing the back and forth thing, but the family just fell in love with it. I mean, it was just such a better fit for our lifestyle that we kind of uprooted everything and just made it permanent. So I'm back a Texas resident.
That's awesome. That's such a good state to be in right now. And then, I mean, even myself, like I didn't even know you trained until just seeing randomly on social media a while ago. And I was like, holy shit, this is great. Can you go back into how and when you discovered jiu-jitsu and really how that started and how you really caught the bug?
I mean, like everybody else, I mean, I saw UFC 1, and I was a lifelong martial artist. So I started when I was 9 years old, and I trained in everything. And in '93, my granddaddy, I was out of the country. My granddaddy sent me a VHS tape of the UFC 1. And I watched that, and obviously, since then, I wanted to learn this, but that was before the internet or anything. So you couldn't just Google search as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Actually, back then there was no Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It was just Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Royce Gracie. And Hickson had closed his place on Pico Boulevard, and he was renting out space in the Palisades. And they came in and they started. It was a Jerry Banks karate, and they were renting out space. So on the hardwood floors, I see this guy putting out mats, and I looked at the bottom of the pants, and the bottom of the pants said RICKSON, and then Gracie, and I didn't know who the fuck this Rickson dude was that was partnering with the great Gracie. Maybe he was a plumber or some shit. I don't know. I said, are you any relationship? Are you guys associated with Royce Gracie? And he goes, yeah, he's my brother. I was like, what? Your brother with the great Royce Gracie? And I said, I saw UFC 1, what he did, and I've always wanted to train this. And he goes in the back, and he comes out, threw a gi at me. He goes, man, put the gi. Tonight you train with us. I said, is that okay? He's like, no, man, my friend, come on, you're going to love this. And everybody knows how the story ends, man. I was doing triathlons at the time. Mm-hmm. I was an athlete, competing at the high and successfully. And I'd heard all the mystical stories about jiu-jitsu, and it came time to spar. And I'm sure you guys have heard of Henry Akins.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Well, his little brother was Matt Akins, still is, but he was in the room, Matt, and he was a blue belt at the time. And Matt's about 135 pounds soaking wet. I've been 168 pounds my entire adult life, never really wavered. And I pointed to him. I said, "Do you want to be my partner for this sparring?" And I didn't do that to be a bully. I just thought, man, I've heard the stories, and the belt system is white, blue, purple, brown, black. If this tiny little motherfucker can even stalemate with me as a blue belt, everything I've ever heard about jiu-jitsu is real and authentic. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows how the story ends. I mean, the dude was on my back, choking me, arm lock, wrist lock, knee guard, heel hook, and there's nothing I could do about it. And
Henry Akins, by the way, is one of Hickson's original American black belts.
Yeah, he's actually the third American black belt. Chris Saunders is the first, but yeah, Henry Akins is without question probably the most profound influence on my jiu-jitsu game, bar none. I've trained with that dude for 20 years now. You know, it's
he's got some great content recently on BJJ Fanatics. I was just up there with Bernardo, and he was talking about Henry's videos, and I mean, they're just great little nuggets of like fundamentals that even I'd never seen before. Really good.
Yeah. It's and you know, it's that occurs to me all the time whenever I'm training or traveling. It's you know, styles are so different and unique. They're like fingerprints, you know. And it's not to say another style doesn't work, but it's crazy that so many of some details in some positions are just completely removed from a curriculum, and it's replaced by something else that may work just as well for somebody. But some of these gems are, I mean, I find them to be just that, gems. But you know, Matt completely mopped me up, destroyed me, and you know, I find there's two types of people in the world. There's the type of person that says, well, you know, in a street fight, I would have groin shot, eye gouged, and then there's the type of person that says, you know, if I met this dude in the dark alley, he'd leave with everything I owned if he wanted to, if that was his preference. And you know, and I was in the latter category. You know, it's a hard thing to look in the mirror and say, wow, this is no offense against TKD Taekwondo, but really, when I look in the mirror, it's like, holy shit, Flanery, you might have just wasted a big portion of your life training something that will be destroyed like that if you meet the first colored belt in an alley. And that's a hard thing to look in the mirror and say, but it is the honest to God truth. You know, I was that dude, and I signed up for classes on the day, and I signed up for 2 times a week, and that lasted a day. I came back the next time, I'm like, fuck that, I got to do this unlimited. And I was completely addicted to the martial art, and I pretty much trained, you know, I'm not joking when I say like 4 or 5 hours a day, because I'd do the 11 o'clock class, then stay for an hour of open mat, then do an hour of private with Henry or Mario, Elo, and then come back in the evening, then do another hour of open mat. I mean, I was completely addicted. People have their drugs. That was mine. So for, you know, just year after year, I was just, I wanted to understand this equation, you know.
And you started with TKD? Is that what you, martial arts wise?
Yeah. Started Taekwondo in martial. Actually, you know, the first thing I started with was a made up McDojo martial art. And to this day, I wish I remember the name of it, but it was something like Tor Swedo or Shop, you know, one of those. And it was next to a Piggly Wiggly. And
your parents threw you in as a kid?
Well, you know, I'll tell you what I wanted to do is I saw, you know, everybody has a Bruce Lee story. How'd you get into martial arts? Well, I saw Bruce Lee, and you know, I mean, I saw that foot. Wow. And mine was Elvis. I saw Elvis do Suspicious Mind on the Vegas. I'm not kidding. You know, with the jump, dude. He's like, we're going. And I was like, holy shit, Dad, is that karate? And my dad's like, yeah, you know, I think he trains with the old man, Ed Parker. My dad was the Golden Gloves boxer, so he's into martial arts and all kind of striking and stuff. And I said, man, I want to do that. And we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but there was this academy next to a Piggly Wiggly. And back then,
Piggly Wiggly.
Wait. That's how you know you're a Southerner, man. If you know what a Piggly Wiggly is.
Nobody knows that.
Yeah, it's a grocery store, man. But
it's a grocery store, yeah. And it's like a real, like, I don't even know how to say it. It's like a low-end grocery store, right? It's like,
I mean, it's the one where in the neighborhood where I grew up, man.
Same here. Yeah.
But you know, there was this martial arts academy, and back then, if you were a black belt, you could basically annihilate the United States of America standing army. That was the folklore. You know what I mean? If you're a black belt, no problem. 20 dudes, you will render them unconscious and helpless. Just, you know, so nobody knew. And so I started training there. It didn't take very long for us to find out that this guy was completely full of shit. I mean, even back then, I remember thinking, this dude's a fat tub of shit. This dude would get gassed going up a flight of stairs. And I know that even if a martial art is good, there is a physical component to it. You know what I mean? So I had questions, but it was quickly uncovered that this guy is just making shit up out of his ass. But then I quickly got into an Olympic style Taekwondo academy, and it went on from there. And I don't regret anything that I trained, because I dabbled in Goju-Ryu, Shotokan, then got into Muay Thai and Judo, and I don't regret anything. But your path is what your path is. But I think everybody's regret. I would probably bet both of your regrets with jiu-jitsu is that you didn't start it earlier. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar. Like, I have, my first art was Ishinryu karate, and my instructor used to be the announcer at all those Ed Parker tournaments. So, and then he told me before he passed away, he said, "You learn jiu-jitsu, you'll be the only karate guy that can stay on your feet." And then that was 1999. So even then, I still wish I started earlier. Yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't wish they started it earlier. And that's that's a metaphor for life with every bit of truth that you uncover. You wish you'd have found that truth just a little bit earlier. And you see it every day. When people do find it, they go, a light bulb goes off, and they're like, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is that magic, that thing, that invisible weapon you have in your pocket, where if they don't have the weapon, it's a foregone conclusion. And I was on the receiving end of that with Matt Akins, who, could have done anything he wanted to me. And that's a scary thing to look in the mirror and have to admit to yourself, and to put on a brand new white belt and go back and be a beginner. And being slaughtered by blue belts. In Taekwondo, there's nobody off the street, no athlete will walk into a TKD academy and get slaughtered by the first belt, yellow belt. No, man, if you're an athlete, I don't know, roll the dice, put gloves on, a TKD yellow belt. I don't know. Really, it's going to come down to whoever's the best athlete. And but jiu-jitsu, it's foregone conclusion.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy because, like you said, you come in as a white belt, you're getting your butt kicked every single day over and over, and you come back. You want to come back and do it and get better at it.
That's one of the reasons that jiu-jitsu academies are filled with, I find, a good cross section of people, because they're the people that don't stop. I'll tell you what's more comfortable. Not losing is comfortable. Not losing is comfortable as fuck. But you stay a loser. You never achieve anything. You got to go through that dark tunnel of having a skinny, weak motherfucker that looks like he should be doing my accounting end up on my back and choking me, and I have to ask forgiveness. Man, I'll tell you, that is humility. Learning to say, that tiny little motherfucker, I'm going to ask him if he'll let me live a little bit longer. And I'm going to try to figure out how he made that happen. That takes, there's a lot of growth in that little motion right there.
Yeah, we say it all the time, right? You roll with somebody you've never met before, and you know more about them personality-wise than you do trying to talk to them for an hour. I mean, it's amazing.
Yep, 100%.
And it's even at my academy, like, we've had a lot of people come in, visitors, and it's just amazing. Owning an academy now since 2016, that's one of the best things about it. Like you said, you get this cross-section of people. You don't know their background. You don't know this guy, that guy. For example, there's a guy came in from the city training with us for 5-6 months. We become friends, go out to eat after. We don't know each other. Turns out that's Steven Spielberg's son. So he trains with us. No shit. And but that's just an example. Cool. It's like it's amazing,
Yeah. And
I tell people all the time, at my academy in LA, on the wall there would be, nobody would know it, but this dude's a huge agent at CAA, probably makes $10 million a year. Next to him is a dude that I'm pretty certain has robbed a liquor store in his youth. You know what I mean? Next to him is Guy Ritchie, Madonna's ex-husband. And like, nobody gives a fuck. It's one thing. You can work in a cubicle, and I defy you to one day ask, send a general memo to your workforce and say, hey guys, I'm changing apartments tomorrow and I rented a U-Haul. You guys want to show up and help me move? I'll buy everybody pizza. Nobody's showing up. You do that at a jiu-jitsu academy, pretty much everybody is showing up for a slice of pizza. It's just a different type of brotherhood. It is. There's something magic happens when you try and kill each other. I mean, it's there's a bond that's almost it's indelible.
It's true. You definitely have a different respect for people when you fight them. You definitely,
Yeah.
you know.
Now you're in a really unique position because as an actor, you see a lot of over the years, it's great for jiu-jitsu to have actors, be ambassadors in the sport and ambassadors for the art. But, you started way earlier than a lot of other actors that may have been into jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of actors that predominantly do private lessons, and that is just way different than going in there, like you said, and just being on the mat with people you don't know. So is that kind of, I think people should know about your jiu-jitsu background too, is you're on the mat. I mean, you started way earlier than people think. You're in there, blood, sweat, and tears with everybody else. You didn't just go in and just do privates kind of a thing. Can you go into that a little bit, how that is different than what you see today's sometimes actors? Oh, this actor trains, but it's not like what you did,
Well, to be honest, I don't know about that. It's bizarre to me. I mean, no offense to anybody, but if you're just doing private lessons, you don't know jiu-jitsu. You're not training jiu-jitsu, and you're going to be fucking helpless out on the street. You have to go against somebody that doesn't give a fuck about you and is doing everything in their power to get on your back and collapse your carotid artery. If you're solo rolling with a compliant partner, you might as well train a kata, do TKD, do something else. I don't. To be honest, I don't know anybody. I've heard the rumors of this guy. He only does privates, and as you know, the jiu-jitsu community is tiny. If this guy does open mats, you're going to find out about it. If you ask around, you probably know 15 people that have rolled with me through the years. It's like that's just the way it is. It's like I travel with a gi. If I ever get to the Hamptons, you can bet your life on the fact that I'm going to show up with a gi and no gi stuff and I'm going to train. It's because it's that big of a part of my life, and I don't do it as some medal of honor, like, ooh, I train with anybody. That's what the lifestyle is. That's what the martial art is. You need somebody that's actively trying to do damage to you in order to get better. It is impossible to achieve a blue belt with private lessons and a compliant partner. I don't know another way to phrase
100%.
it.
Yeah.
If somebody ever got a blue belt through privates only and was only going through the motions with somebody that was giving, they do not, in my opinion, not to rub people the wrong way, they don't deserve a blue belt. And so I don't know what that is. To me, it's a made up like offshoot of BJJ that gives people the reason to say they train it, but I don't know. You're missing the wonderful part about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's not theory. There is no theory. You and I clap hands. We know what's going to happen if shit goes sideways in 2 weeks in an alley. We know absolutely. That motherfucker can sweep me from the bottom and rip my leg off my hip. And he's done it 5 times. I know what's going to happen if I meet him in an alley. Or I've rolled with this guy 15 times. He can't keep me off of his back. I mount him. He can't get me off. Fight's going to be over. You know that. You know that pecking order. And that's healthy within any tribe. It strives to make you go, how do I answer that question that he presents to me every day? If you're not presented those questions that confound you, you're missing the most beautiful part of the art that keeps you climbing, keeps you striving, keeps you trying to grow. I've heard the stories. I don't know who they are. I mean, I've certainly heard their names, and I don't know anybody that's rolled with them. I don't. And unfortunately, they may think they're protecting themselves, but realistically, man, look, I've never been an A-list actor. I'm a C or a D or whatever the fuck list I am. But what I do know is that if people find out you're the dude from Boondock or what, it lasts 3 minutes, and then they're like, okay, cool, let's go. And they're trying to kill you.
They're thinking when you have them in the mountain to choke, that's what they're thinking about. Like you said, that's the art.
Yeah. Well, they forgot you were even an actor when you're choking them, or I mean, honestly,
it ceases to mean anything. Like nobody gives a shit. Like honestly, if I'm on the mat with you, if we train, you probably, as a martial artist, you probably have more respect for my black belt than fucking movies. I mean, and I know that because I mean, look, the first one that I earned is right here. I retired it, but it's in my office. Old tattered thing.
Yeah.
This is more valuable to me than shit, this is my office. Then, any Boondock memorabilia. I'm not making that up. I'm not saying it because I'm talking to jiu-jitsu guys. It's, man, so much more went into this than, come on, man. It's no joke. It's like I tell people all the time, man, if I had to give up 10 movies, and with that movie, give up all the relationships and all the open doors that were made to get a suitcase of $100 million, I'd probably do it. I'd pick 10 movies. I'm not joking. There's not a dollar figure. And that's not a joke. 100 million, liquid cash, every Bitcoin known to man. I wouldn't. I have enough to survive. This is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
I just, and people don't get it. It's in this world, nobody gives a shit if you're an actor. I mean, it's a neat little novelty. Oh shit, you were in that movie. That's cool. Hey, what was so-and-so like? Oh, that's cool. Anyway, let's work over that mount again. It goes quickly back to jiu-jitsu. It's just if I meet a dude that's like, oh, I'm the dude that, orchestrated Elon's purchase of Twitter. I'm like, oh shit, that's kind of cool as hell. How'd you get involved in that? Okay, so anyway, let's go from the feet this time.
Right. Exactly. It's funny you mentioned your black belt because I travel a lot too, and I bring my stuff with me because I try to train no matter where I am. What's funny is I always put my belt in my backpack. Like my gi and stuff could go in my suitcase, but my belt goes in my backpack because that's the only thing I don't want to lose. Like if I lose my suitcase, it's pretty funny.
Dude, it's the same thing with me. I've never once checked my belt. And that's no joke. Not even my blue belt. I would never check that. Motherfucker, I remember when Hickson tied that on my waist. You think I'm going to lose that? There's no way I would trust that to an American Airlines ground.
You're like the gi, forget it. But my belt I'm keeping with me. Even if I have to wear it.
My rash guard, I don't give a shit. But even my blue belt, man, even as a matter of fact, the first one that I traveled was my white belt, and they put a blue stripe on it when you completed the self-defense curriculum. It's still hanging on the wall in my academy. If I lost that, I would be devastated. It's a white belt, man. I think I had it, I don't know, a year before I mastered the self-defense curriculum, got my blue. It means the world to me.
But the way you explained it is exactly what attracts people to the art. And I mean, when I saw the documentary Choke in 99, you know what I mean? It's that realism. It's that real feedback from a resisting partner that makes it, even without strikes, more realistic than most other arts. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of even the other martial arts, the Taekwondo, karate, it's still, there was still something missing, particularly for me, maybe not for other people. But then in jiu-jitsu, this is a fully resisting partner, and it's the meritocracy of the art where the evolution constantly changed. It was all about the realism, that for me and for most other people like yourself, the way you're explaining it is exactly what you can't explain unless you're on the mat.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just it really is, it's nature at its finest. It weeds people in and it weeds people out. And if you're wearing a belt, you're going to be exposed really quickly, whether that was given on merit or if it was given on tenure. You're going to be found out very, very quickly. And there's something amazing. I don't know. It's not in my constitution to wrap something around my waist and never have it tested. I don't get it. I don't get these theoretical martial arts where you do the kata and up block and horse, and I don't get it. And going, well, we can't do it because it's too deadly. But in the street, this is how it would. It's like, shut up, stop. A film coming to theaters. I have a film coming to theaters this Friday on the 3rd, and it's called Frank and Penelope. And I wrote it and I directed it. And
very cool.
I wrote a character based on George Dillman, the famous no-touch knockout. I wrote a character. If you see it, you got to shoot me a message. Let me know what you think, because it's a little martial arts Easter egg in the movie. It's totally based on George Dillman, because I mean, here's a guy that's made a career out of making people believe that he can,
like no touch knockout, all that stuff. Yeah.
It's just, and the unfortunate thing is, I don't really give a shit if you're a magician. You know, but the beautiful thing about magicians is they tell you they're illusionists.
Mm-hmm.
They don't tell you they have weird power and I can elevate this elephant. They're like, I'm going to do it. You're not going to be able to figure out how I did it. And it's going to be amazing. And I'm still amazed. I'm like, holy shit. I know that elephant's not floating, but how did you do it? I can still dig that. But if you got a posse of kids on a schoolyard going, man, if that bully comes at to me, I'm going to chi blast his ass. That kid's going to, you know, his life can be ruined.
Mm-hmm.
His life can literally be ruined. And that's, you should be held liable for that crap.
I remember looking at all that Dillman stuff, or even some other. There's I've seen some other arts where it's like that. You know, they claim the chi and like can stop without touching somebody and control them. I mean, yeah, it's a point where it loses realism, but nowhere else do you see that exposed than the jiu-jitsu mats. I mean, you know.
Well, the beautiful thing is we test it. We test it every day. You know that this works. How do you know? Because there's a guy in front of me, and he's running at me, and he's going to do everything in his power to stop me from bringing him to the ground, and then he's going to do everything in his power. And look, it's amazing not only when you learn how to choke somebody, but you learn how to choke somebody that has spent 10, 20 years trying to not get choked. You can choke that motherfucker. Good luck, dude, at the Chevron that's pissed off at you because you're at the wrong station. I don't know. And with that comes a lot of responsibility. But in achieving that, hopefully sticks that responsibility in you. Because I'll tell you what jiu-jitsu does. It makes you walk through the Kroger, the grocery store, and go, that dude's tiny and small, but if that dude's a black belt, he will fuck up that bigger dude. You don't know. I mean, the scary dudes were at the tournaments were never the dudes that are all yoked out with beanies and like, the dudes at the tournament that were scary, they're like, they take their glasses off, they put them in the case, they put their ski on, and then they fuck you up. You know, it's such a cerebral martial art, and one that we get to practice in real time and see if it works. The beautiful thing about this: no instructor can feed you full of shit because you can test it. Everything is tested out every single day. There is no trust me, this will work. Trust me doesn't exist in a jiu-jitsu academy. It's like, well, we're gonna find out.
Yeah, and it's tested every day at 100%. You know, it's not tested at 40%. It's tested full force. You know.
Yeah. And what's your perspective? I mean, as an academy owner as well, just seeing how that is a totally different, like, you know, perspective and learning process. When did you initially open? Like, at what point were you like in your jiu-jitsu career? You were like, I'm opening an academy and I need to do this.
Well, it was in 2003. You know, unfortunately, you know, Hickson's son passed, and he ended up going back to Brazil. The academy, as anybody will tell you from that era, the academy kind of went in a myriad of different directions. You know, Crone wasn't old enough to run an academy. I want to say he was 15. You know, Henry Akins and Kevin Casey were sometimes running classes, and it was a weird time, you know? And so I opened an academy, not to have this burgeoning, there's no burgeoning business acumen. I didn't see nobody did jiu-jitsu. I opened it, I rented a place and stuck mats in it so we'd have a place to train. That was it. And it turned into more and more people, and it turned into a viable business that stayed alive and paid taxes and employed multiple people for, 17 years. But it certainly, I'm not going to tell you that I foresaw the BJJ revolution. No, there's nobody that did it. It was the Hickson's Academy broke up. There were tiny little factions training everywhere. Nobody knew what was going on. And, then it kind of sort of reconvened when Crone got old enough. And I won't bore you guys with the stories. I'm sure you guys know all the stories of, of Henry and Kevin and everybody kind of made up and came back together. And it's, but by then, HBJJ was started, and because I never wanted to stop. I didn't want to take a week break. I didn't want, there's no training today. I needed that. I mean, I'm not kidding, like a meth head. If I went a day and somebody said no class, I was finding a class. I get the whole creanche stuff. I get it. And I'd never put another gi on in my life. I'd never trained outside of Hickson's. If I was traveling to Vancouver, Hickson would call and he goes, okay, my friend Marco Suarez, he got a place in Vancouver. I call him. He wait for you. You know, I'd never trained outside of his approval and saying, when you're out of town, this is who you go to. So the first time, and it was a big decision because suddenly my source wasn't offering it, and I wasn't okay with going without. I wasn't.
Right.
Certainly with no promise of in the future we're gonna keep, you know, and you know, the group ended up piecing itself back together and whatnot, and I'm still friends with all of those guys. The entire time I was still training with Henry at my place and in my garage at my house, you know, four times a week. Him and Shane Rice were both coming to my house every single day. It's and Shane Rice now black belt who's got a place, I want to say, outside of Vancouver in Canada. But it meant that much to me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much you see in a lot of the history of different people and, you know, different teams and, you know, the lineages and, you know, old school and then splitting up and, you know, things like that. A lot of like that happens naturally, you know, so your instructor moves away and you know, people need, like you said, they need training. You're going to make it happen. You put mats down somewhere, figure it out. You know, that's a lot of times how, you know, academies happen, different teams start. Yeah, it seems like for you, it was just something you couldn't live without and you made it happen.
So that's exactly it. I mean, there was no, you know, there was no ill will or anything like that. It was just like, I got to keep doing this. You know, you taught it to me, but I got to keep doing this and I got to keep doing it on a daily basis.
So when you're on location, right, say you're filming for a long period of time, do you train at other academies? Do you bring some mats with you to the set? Like, do you guys train on set ever, or, you know, drag some partners over with you?
The only time I ever had a mat, I purchased a mat, I was in India and I couldn't find any training at all. I brought my gi and I ended up flying, who's a black belt now, Samir Carlson, flying him out to India because I was out there for, you know, 2 months and I was out there for a week and I'm like, I looked on the internet before I went and there was a wrestling academy and they said they did jiu-jitsu classes I was going to train. Turned out that had closed like a year before. So that's the only time I go to other academies. I mean, I walk in unannounced, everybody's super cool. I introduce myself and I'm treated like family. Off the plane, no information about me. You show up and it's like, oh, welcome. Here's the class. This is so and so, and it is truly a brethren. But I'm not kidding. I mean, I probably trained at 200 different places.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I travel so much. I've trained in all over New York. I've trained all over Chicago, all over Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, LA, San Diego. You pick it in all over.
That's a unique perspective then. So like, in your experience of traveling and training in other gyms, coming from that Hickson lineage and that very close knit group that you did, and then traveling and going to all these places, is it, you know, at the same time, there's the fundamentals that don't change, but then there's a lot of evolution that does change. You know, is that what you see when you're traveling? It's generally, okay, it's the same thing I've seen everywhere else. Was there anywhere where it's like, wow, these guys are doing something different, or is it just, it's all the same?
The difference between the jiu-jitsu camps from one extreme to the other was like that in 99. Now, there's academies now where guys know inside Ashi, but they can't get out of a headlock. And I say that with all the love in the world, but part of my soul dies. Part of my soul dies if you're at the Chevron, a dude grabs you in a headlock and you have no idea what to do, but happens to be standing over you and you're on your butt. You can bottom entry, you know, single leg X and transfer it to a saddle position. But yes, I see it, and I've seen it change, and I get it. I totally understand. But I am a big proponent of enter this game with a mission statement. Whatever your mission statement is, there is a flavor for you. I know what flavor suits my mission statement, and it may be different than the flavor that suits yours. But jiu-jitsu is not jiu-jitsu is not jiu-jitsu.
Right.
The age-old adage, it's like at Hickson's, it's got to work with clothes on, it's got to work with clothes off, and it's got to work when punches are allowed. It's got to work in a gi, with no gi, and if they're throwing punches. And if you can get hit from somewhere, it's not really a martial art position. It might be a sport position. And look, I love the intricacies and the way it has evolved and how you can take a lapel and amplify your leverage with wrapping it in place. I get it. I totally get it. Within the confines of that rules, it's amazing what people have come up with lapel grips. And
right.
If your mission statement is to win an IBJJF tournament, that is the route that you go to. And with the time limit, it's if your mission statement is to stay alive in a bad situation, self-defense, it's becoming almost a violently different style.
Yeah.
It really is. And so, yeah, I mean, I see all flavors, and I appreciate them for very different reasons. Although my mission statement is rather old school. I mean, I got into this because I wanted to be able to protect myself. And the truth is, like my granddaddy once said, the truth is in behavior, not words. Look at what I do. I teach my kids old school fundamental jiu-jitsu. Both of my kids, I defy anybody within 20 pounds of their weight range to hold them in a headlock, standing or on the ground. They know the whole entire self-defense curriculum. They know mount maintenance. They know how to – the first thing that they ever learned is getting out of every side control. They know all of our dirty 37 side control escapes. They know all of our fundamental mount escapes from every incarnation. You know what I mean? But they also know Kani Basami entries from defending a single. You know what I mean? But we started at the fundamental level.
That's the key. I think you're hitting everything that we talk about on this show. It's the balance. You can't have one without the other. I often say, there's a lot of people that, it's all about your goal. You said it perfectly, because a lot of the old school guys, including myself, we started jiu-jitsu because we started in other martial arts with the idea of how am I going to defend myself. A lot of times nowadays, we get people walking in the door. They have their goal is nothing to do with defending themselves. They're looking for something that, is within the art or an exercise that's different. So I think it's like you said, it all depends on what their goal is. Is their goal to add to their exercise regimen? Is their goal to be an IBJJF world champion? Is their goal to defend themselves because they're a police officer? But I think, therefore, we need all the aspects, which is the old school fundamentals, which is the old school self-defense, which is the new school leg entries, no gi. I mean, you need, and now you're going to be able to cover all of these wide range of goals that maybe somebody has. But I think a lot of times we either see one or the other, right? There's like it's like, somebody walks in and there's no self-defense here. Well, that's not good. Or, there's only self-defense and there's no leg lock stuff. Like, I think it all comes down to balance.
It all does come. And just like any good pedagogy, if you understand scaffolding and how to teach, I agree. Like I said, my kids know Connie entries. They know 411. They know saddle. They know inside. They know outside. They know the transitions.
Awesome.
They know the matrix back take. They know all of this crap. But it started with fundamentals. They know how to sit correctly in the closed guard. They know how to stay safe. They know how to compromise posture and keep it compromised. Then you build on that. Then if you want to teach somebody, cross body rides, crab rides, intricate leg entanglements, all the more power to it. Because if it goes sideways, you can recover. There's no way, just my competitive nature, there's no way that I could turn my back on, some of the new evolutionary styles of jiu-jitsu, because I don't want to go into academy and have some blue belt rip my leg off just for purely egotistical reasons. There's no way you could shut your eye to the legit things these guys are doing. And man, if you're only an old school fundamental jiu-jitsu dude, you're gonna get leg locked by a blue belt.
Yep.
And brother, my ego won't allow that shit to happen. So for that reason alone, You have to learn this stuff. It's just how do you learn it? Where do you place it in the hierarchy of needs of your jiu-jitsu curriculum?
I perfectly said, not to jump in there. I'm just like excited right now because it's exactly the points that we always bring up. And I think it's one of those things where you see a lot of different old school guys, either they get defensive or they embrace it. And I think the embracing of it, as long as you're keeping it, and I just love guys like Henry Akins on BJJ Fanatics. The one little detail he added or showed rather, I mean, obviously it's a known thing, but posturing in the guard, like you said, one little detail of him, curving his back a certain way or pinching the knees in tight under the guy's butt. That's something I even overlooked. Back in the day, we just learned posture and knees open wide for a base. So even the fundamentals, there's little nuggets and even evolution just within the old school fundamentals. I think that's a great point. People just see black and white, old school and new school, but there's a lot of that old school stuff that has evolved over the years, that old school fundamental.
You hit on one big one. I mean, probably the most profound, eye-opening thing is that nugget that you just mentioned when I traveled. The probability of me seeing someone sitting correctly in the closed guard is slim to none. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't just wad up a gi and frame and end up passing a lot of people. But it doesn't mean that they could do it even better if they added this little nugget. I mean, your hands are free. When I come from Hickson's, this hand is not to keep me upright. It's to stop you from coming to me and from me from going down. I should never touch you. I should be able to maintain my posture with my hips alone. These are for passing. And now you see her grabbing the gi, holding it, leaning on it. And I get it. I could teach somebody to pass that way. But I think I could teach them to do it better if they incorporated their hips. And it's a nugget like that you realize, my God, I mean, I've had some people that once they figured out, man, they're passing guard. They're going to blow through everybody's guard because they're so good with stability using their upper body limbs. When they add the most powerful hinge on the human body, the hips, oh my God, they're going to blow past people's legs. And so you see these different flavors. And, it's one thing, especially with video now. There's a lot of things that you can't see. And don't get me wrong, like invisible jiu-jitsu, it starts to sound a little like, like George Tillman, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It starts to take this weird kind of hokey crap. But that's something that you can't see on video. But when you show it to them, they're like, oh my God, that's a material change.
Yeah, you have to feel it.
Everybody I know sits in guard with what's called a steatopogic ass. So their back is arched and their ass is out. The chest is out. They're looking at the ceiling. When really, you want the tailbone tucked up underneath your nutsack. And in the kids' class, we call it fat bellies. Show me fat bellies. Make it to where your belly has fat rolls. If I don't see fat rolls, you're doing it wrong. But something as subtle as that can make a wholesale change in somebody's ability to stay safe inside of a four-limb attacker, closed guard player.
See, that's exactly the stuff that keeps me motivated in this art after 21 years, is that even something so basic that you can come up with a cue that now, speeds up the learning curve just by cueing it correctly. Like, I mean, Brian and I come from a very old school lineage, and even after black belt, those little cues I'd never seen before until just not even Henry Akins. We had Braulio Estima in for a seminar. Like, just those little details. If you're doing a back squat, that's not the back position you want when you're inside closed guard. Load isn't coming down on my shoulders; it's being pulled to me forward. So it makes perfect sense. You have to, pelvic tilt or fat bellies, like you said. I mean, that is exactly one little detail I've never seen before. Even the knees, don't just have the knees wide in closed guard. You got to be pinning those knees in on your partner's hips. In addition to we're just talking about being inside somebody's closed guard, and this is something that's amazing to me.
Right. Well, I think that's sort of what we're talking about, like the lifelong evolution, right? Learning all these little things, learning all these little details, and changing and improving your game, no matter what stage you're at.
But these are some of the fundamentals that, through the course of time, have been lost. Like it's the way I learned it. When you're sitting, the first, I'll give you an example. Like when people teach a guard pass, they say, okay, you're sitting there. So whoa. There's a day's lesson in so you're sitting there. Let's not stop the so you're sitting there.
Right.
You're Indian style, you got one knee up, you cross-legged, you lounging, And for example, like just what you said, the most powerful aspect of my closed guard is my hip mobility. So if you're not impeding the mobility of my hips with your knees, so your butt's on the ground, when I wide knees, when I narrow it in, as soon as I see your butt start to lift, that's where I lock my knees. I mean, that was day one stuff. So whenever you come across people, you're like, oh my God, he's giving me full range of my hips and sitting in correctly. And they're probably still achieving a lot with that, with a couple of little adjustments. Whoo, man. And look, I've seen people win world championships sitting incorrectly. I'm sure you guys have as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure once you see it, you agree, wow, he'd be even more devastating if he just and it sounds so elitist and so egotistical to even say that, but it is kind of the truth. It's you see that and you're like, it's like, look, Phil Jackson was a good player, but he was an amazing coach. You know what I mean? It's like Phil Jackson maybe going, yeah, I can tell this player. It's like, well, dude, can you slam dunk up? Well, no, but he can tell you a way to.
Like Danaher, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. The dude never competed, but that dude is a supercomputer of jiu-jitsu information.
Yeah, I think it's like the spectrum of athleticism and technique and where on that spectrum you lie. Like you said, there's many world champions out there. Their athleticism is so high that the level of technique could be minimal to be able to get world championship level. But like you said, imagine you're trying to combine the best of both worlds of athleticism and technique with these little nuggets, like you're saying, plus the new evolution of techniques. Like it's balance. It's balance in what your goal is. I mean, that's exactly
and it's all cyclical. It's a flavor of the week. I think we might have, the leg lock was the last unexplored area. Now we're going to continue perfecting everything. I'm sure we'll make advancements on something as basic as a Kimura. You know what I mean? But the leg locks were unexplored territory. It was almost like we're like on the globe and don't go over to that country. It's fucked. There's nothing there for you. And then finally somebody went over there and went, wait a minute, man, there's some gold over there. And so I think that's the last area that's completely unexplored. And it's cyclical. The proof is in the pudding. Right now, you have a dude, Mika Galvao, who's trashing people with closed guard arm locks. He's trashing people with everything that people said will no longer work. Nicholas Morgali is trashing people with closed guard omoplatas. Day one stuff. It's not highly technical. He's just reached a level of mastery with that fundamental movement that 90% of the other competitors have not. And he's so fundamental. It's beautiful to watch. This guy's doing lesson one omoplata, and it's unstoppable. Mika Galvao, his closed guard. There's nothing strange or, I'm sure he's going to have a BJJ Fanatics video, and people are going to go, what is this thing? It's called the containment guard, where they actually cross their legs behind the tail. It's day one stuff, and it's wonderful to see it coming around full circle.
Cyclic, yeah.
And then again, they'll forget about legs, and somebody will rediscover the straight ankle lock, because everybody now everybody just bypasses the straight ankle. It goes to a heel hook. Sooner people are going to go, wait a minute, on the way to that ashi, I also have a straight ankle. It's wonderful to watch. It's enlightening. I get a little nugget every time I see something new in evolution, and I put it in my game. I continue to learn, and I'm grateful that it is evolving like this. And I'm sure eventually I'm going to see something that Mika or Nicholas Morgali does and go, oh my God, he's doing it a little bit differently, and I think that's a little bit differently better. It's wonderful to see all of this progress bottled and readily consumable.
Yeah, I mean, even just talking about the last 15, 20 years of guard passing, it started closed guard on the knees, and then was a lot of open guard. So what did the guys on top do? They would stand, and then here came the De La Ribas and the inverting and reverse De La Ribas, and now everybody's coming full circle to pass on the knees again because they want to avoid getting entangled with the legs. And just like you said, it's the circle of what's popular now versus what people are, becoming a master of and exploiting in real time.
One of my favorite things that I've seen recently is everybody talking about, and there's, a number of instructionals out there. Forums are talking about, my favorite pass is the body lock pass. So when you're in butterfly guard, it's like, whoa. How the fuck did you get to butterfly guard? We were talking about passing the guard. How did you even open the leg? I mean, of course, passing butterfly, but you're in butterfly. You're not in the closed guard. If your number one pass is the body lock pass, we got to figure out how to open the legs and get there first.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just and that all came from, people, the whole word guard means distance dictates damage. I have the use of my two most powerful limbs to keep you from getting within punching range. It's a guard. Well, now they're calling half guard as a guard, and butterfly and inverted guard. There's nothing separating you from punching, and they're all still called guards. So it's funny when they say my favorite type of pass. Well, what are you passing? You're already clear of the blunt force trauma limbs. You're clear of anything stopping you from punching. So now it is kind of just a formality. The biggest issue is, how do I get from this barrier that's stopping me from advancing my position? And you're absolutely right, because nobody plays closed guard anymore. We've kind of stopped even figuring out, because people, if they're in a closed guard, they open it and they go right to an open guard.
Yeah, people initiate butterfly guard. They're going to sit and pull and go right to butterfly now. Yeah,
that's true. Exactly, but we should be so lucky. You know what I mean? That's a. How do you? It's like, how do you take somebody's back and choke them? Okay, well, when you're back there, you do this with whoa. How do I get there? That's the magic.
Right.
Like, you brand new students, they want you to show them the rear naked choke. Man, I could show anybody that in 8 minutes. Give me 2 years if you want me to teach you how to take somebody to the ground without getting punched or bit or your hair pulled, how to circumnavigate their body to their back, maintain that position indefinitely. That's the magic of jiu-jitsu, not the rear naked strangle. It's and the magic is the hard thing to learn.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I think we all go back to our white belt days, and we're like, we need a submission. We need to learn a submission. Like you're very obsessed with it when you first start out.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's
getting there.
I've always looked up to like BJ Penn's jiu-jitsu, because it always meant to me, like, because he was always using it. He won it world championship, IBJJF, or back then it wasn't IBJJF, but in the gi, in sport jiu-jitsu, and in MMA, translated very well. And he said all I do is advanced basics, and I just shove it down the guy's throat. I mean, that was always BJ Penn's quote. And I think advanced basics is a great way to see it too, because even the fundamentals I've learned, like you said, there's little things I've never even seen before or have evolved. People just, relate evolution to, the leg lock game. Like, no, there's evolution within the old school, within the fundamentals too, that people aren't seeing.
Well, and also BJ Penn back then, when he took a back, he trapped an arm with his leg. And now
that's nothing new. Yeah.
It's brand new discovered. You're like, what? That's been around since, 98.
Yeah, BJ's been doing that for the longest time. BJ would trap an arm and cover the guy. That's nothing new either,
Yeah.
That's Half Gracie, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, people don't realize, like, back, I was always in Sure Dog. Like, there's like an old school group of guys, like the MMA forums and Sure Dog, and like the transition from traditional martial arts to jiu-jitsu was a very unique time that not a lot of people, went through and had that revelation of watching, Hoist Gracie in the first UFCs, not on tape, but when it actually happened. And then, everybody in the 80s was about like all the stand-up arts and ninjutsu, taekwondo, karate. That like is a lost kind of time, which I think people have to see. Like, that was an important transition period to jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, of course. I mean, I honestly have enjoyed every time frame of jiu-jitsu. I've never seen fads come and go. But really, there's a little bit of truth in every one of the fads. Seemingly, maybe leg locks are going to be looked at 10 years from now as, remember when that fad came around? But it really did evolve people's way of thinking. And it was a severe hole in every jiu-jitsu practitioner's game. And until it was exploited, people are like, what? How can these things work? And it's crazy. The same way the shit that you've been doing on the upper body has been working. You know, it's so I think if you keep an open mind, and it's the same way I got into jiu-jitsu. I was a stand-up striker that got his ass handed to him. And that's hard to look in the mirror and say. Conversely, you know, when you've already been a black belt for 10 years and seeing something new, so maybe it is hard to go, I should probably learn that. But you know what? You probably should.
Mm-hmm.
Especially you as a black belt now, meaning myself as well, you have time because you already have a well-seasoned fundamentals game. What better time to add new advanced things? Because if shit goes sideways, you have the fundamentals to get back to a safe position.
I think that's the key, because now, you know, going forward within the art with the unique perspective that you have coming from the old school lineage that you did, but also traveling as much as you do, seeing for yourself on these mats all over the world of, you know, evolution, but not only that, the loss of a lot of the old fundamentals that are around too, the combination. So going forward, I still think it's about balance. People have to rediscover these fundamentals that are lost, but at the same time, keep the open mind, like you said, embrace the changes, add that into your game. I mean, is that how you see it going forward for the art?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something, my Leglock evolution happened way back in 2006. I was in Bulgaria working, filming a movie. And I went and I trained with this house of dudes in a Sambo place. Every single match would either end up in me dominating in the mount or back control or having them attack a leg. Every single one. Like they were completely out of their wheelhouse in anything from the waist up. And I was completely out of my wheelhouse in anything in the waist down. And we did heel hooks at Hickson's and straight ankles, toe holds and everything, but clearly not to the level that somebody, it's almost like a Japanese jiu-jitsu guy going, no, we do Kimuras. It's like, calm down. No, you don't. You know, you do it standing 5 times and you're good in a kata format. Do you know what I mean? It's just very different. And that's about the level of mastery that I was at a surplus of waist up, and I was at a deficit waist down. I mean, I was very well aware, man, if I cannot play open guard with this guy on my back, he's going to dive on my legs. And that's long before anybody knew anything about bottom entry. But this dude dove on your legs. I was in deep trouble. And these weren't like long tenured school. They're just Sambo dudes, 3 and 4 years that were like wrecking my legs. And if they didn't, I would wreck the upper body. But that was the first time that it dawned on me, like, man, we got a huge hole in the game.
What year was that?
I want to say, I'd have to look at my IMDb page to see the specific movie, but I want to say 04 to 06.
Wow. In Bulgaria, getting leg locked. I mean, you're talk about being
at a Sambo school.
yeah, at a Sambo place. Yeah. You know, none of these dudes spoke English, and it was everybody was super cool, man. And they would try and speak language and ask me questions about what I was doing up top. And I'm like trying to ask them questions about like, how did you, you know, I mean, look, that was the first time anybody had really obtained a pythonic grip on my leg. It wasn't just a catch wrestling dive on the straight ankle. It was like, oh my God, my leg is stuck. That was a very, very different type of leg lock than I was used to seeing at Hickson's with straight ankles, with our heel hooks, with our toe holds and whatnot. It was like a constricting, it was a powerful, powerful connection of my leg. And I realized then I didn't have the ability to learn it. Nobody did. But I even knew back then, I'm like, man, if these guys could come to the States and wreck some shop.
And see, I love that point that you made too. Like, I love that clip of Helio doing a heel hook.
Yeah.
It's like at a certain point, even when we came up, Brian, like I started in 99, like there was none of this like, oh, you're not allowed to do heel hooks or whatever. It was still always about the evolution. At some point it became illegal in competition. Let's not do this. So then, like you said, it comes full circle. I love that video of Helio doing a heel hook. At what point did you guys at Hickson's like kind of shy away from, let's not do heel hooks anymore?
We never did.
That's, that's awesome.
Straight ankles, rolling toe holds were all part of the curriculum. Toe holds from the lumberjack. All of that was always there. It was just in tournament situation, you start to steer your training away from, and I'm a big proponent of that too. The rule set really dictates where the sport is going to go. Mm-hmm. And the rule set has really, in my opinion, taken us away from our combative roots. Mm-hmm. And part of my soul dies, but it did it to me. It was part of the curriculum all the time at Hickson's, but we never really did it in rolling because you couldn't do it in tournaments. And, and so that's what happens. It just gets left behind. And it's simply because of the rule set, the sporting aspect.
We talk about rule set. Hickson, which a lot of people don't know, actually implemented a rule set, and it was a tournament, kind of like challenge match, one of the first of its kind, actually, that attempted to award and change the rule set to make it so that what would be an advantage in today's rule set, like 3 points. So like, in other words, I get an armbar attempt on you, you escape, what would have been an advantage, that's like 3 points. So I think Hickson's point was we got to, incentivize the submission. Now, people should look that up in the history, because I think that's lost. In the rule set is one thing, but the evolution of the rule set too should also change to help that. And Hickson already, did that multiple times in the past.
Yeah, I was at that first event. They filmed it in LA, the submission grappling. It was all, there was some kimonos and some, what year was that? 04?
Yeah, that was, I forget the name of it, but it was one of those, it was only, I think, 1 point for positions or something like that, and 3 points for submission attempts, which was great, I think, Yeah,
I agree. I mean, it should mimic, we should do the closest thing possible to mimic who would win in a fight. Mm-hmm. And anything outside of that really strays from, I think, at their core, everybody's mission statement. I think everybody wants what they do to work. And look, everybody's going to say, well, even a sport dude would wreck. Yeah, you may be right. But the point is to not get hit. The point is to do it with zero damage, not, well, he may hit me a couple times, but I'll still rip his leg off. It's like, well, there can be something closer to the bone of ultimate safety. And I think a rule set change would do that. It'd give everybody the best of both worlds. You'd still be able to compete, but it wouldn't stray so far, and I don't know, that's where my heart lies. And, to see it, I mean, it's like judo. Wrestlers were hitting single legs on judo, so they went, fuck it, nothing from the waist down from now on. What a pussy bitch move. I mean, it's like, oh, you're heel hooking? Okay, no reaping. It's like, what is that? Don't run from it. That's no different than when I started out as a TKD player. What about if I said, well, I just won't get taken down? Yeah, bullshit. Yeah, you will. You'll get taken down. And you need to look in the mirror and admit that to yourself. I need to learn this, or I need to continue to be a loser or run away from it. I either need to learn it or make sure I never see it in a dark alley. Like the IBJJF guys going, okay, well, we'll just ban reaping. Well, you're going to find that somewhere, man. They're going to hit you with it. And it's like, you're going to have to learn how to defend a single, dude. What did it do? It made you, it changed the stance in judo. It's like any freshman high school wrestler will single leg a judo, a killer judo guy now. Because
I really like Drysdale, where Drysdale's going with it. He's proponing or pushing that IBJJF legalize heel hooks in the gi, so it'll kill the 50-50 stalling. And his point is that you can defend heel hooks easier in the gi because of the grips. And I was kind of blown away by that perspective. I was like, wow, that makes sense.
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
And look, we're all adults here. Look, you're trying to break my shoulder with a Kimura.
Right. So you signed up for it.
It's all like a made-up propaganda. I mean, and it comes from people that don't know and don't want to get beat by it. If anybody tells you any different, they're full of shit. If you want the art to be what the art can, they should be legal. They should be legal.
Yeah.
It made the game look. I always make a joke with my friends. Man, you took your girlfriend back in '96 to see a tournament. She was like, what do you do? I mean, everything was a Ippon Sayanagi. And, now she sees two guys walk out, drop to their butt, scoot towards each other and unravel their lapel. And oh my God, that's so cute. Very different. But the truth is in the way they witness it. One looks violent and one looks highly specialized, clothing, accentuated. And it's mind-boggling what they've come up with to acquire these points. But it definitely strays from the root of the game. And I think at every one of our core, why we got into it, even the sport player wants to know that this is the best application of violence should I need it.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly said. And I think that's the way we should be going forward, is trying to embrace the evolution, but, also keeping the fundamental roots, but even keeping the little things that are evolving within the fundamentals, seeing the rule sets evolve as well. Like, that's part of the art. You should be evolving the rule set as we go, but for the better, you know what I mean? Not, and judo's perspective is the Olympic sport and they got to keep it. That's why I don't really want to see BJJ in the Olympics. You don't want the rule set to get watered down just to, be another offshoot of judo kind of a thing. So it's very interesting, and it's really awesome to see your perspective. I mean, getting leg locked in about 2004 or so in Bulgaria by Sambo guys, I mean, is an insanely unique perspective. I don't think a lot of our listeners, have heard. And I think a lot of listeners owe it to themselves to go back into the history of the sport a little bit more, seek out some really good fundamental jiu-jitsu at the same time as training at places that embrace the evolution as well. But your perspective is a unique one, and I think you should definitely realize that too, man. Like you've been around and traveled around.
Well, I do, and I love it. I truly do. It's where my heart lies. It's like the first half of my career, all I really wanted to do was compete and travel around and train hard. My first half of my career was this. It was give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Somebody had asked me like, Flanery, what was that arm lock setup you did from the bottom? I'm like, oh, I'll show you after class. Man, after class, I was fucked out of there. I didn't give a shit. The second half of my career is all this. I want to put it into my boys and my kids' class and my adults' class as well. I want to teach them what I think I could have learned more efficiently and more quickly, and the whole. And I truly enjoy it. And as a black belt, that's part of my legacy, is to leave it behind, to make sure all of those little nuggets aren't left, and evaporated, because it could have very easily just completely been gone. There's not a lot of people that even know those stupid tiny little adjustments that make your game even better. And that's not to say that this person wouldn't have beaten that person without it, but they could do it better with it. So I truly love it. I truly love it. I love getting beat by something I haven't seen. I love that. Whoa, it gives me hope. Like, man, my game can get even better because I can take that in my game. If you constantly only win, man, I'm not getting things that are going to make me better. I'm not being surprised by anything. And I look forward to being surprised.
Now I think one of the big things is what you mentioned is like passing it on, right? Why let them have to rediscover it, right? In that cycle, if you could pass it on and they could build on it, it's so much more important and so much more beneficial than having people rediscover things.
Yep.
Yeah, little things like the cues that you pointed out, like when you say to the kids, fat bellies. I mean, that it's funny as that is, and as simple that is, a simple cue like that, teaching kids with that. I mean, compared to the language barrier that we had, learning directly from the Brazilians, and then over time, maybe it took 10 years to realize what we were actually doing inside the closed guard. You're talking about shortening the learning curve just with one little cue. I mean, talk about giving back to the students in jiu-jitsu. But now, as far as your acting career, it looks like you're doing a lot of giving back. I mean, look at Born a Champion. I mean, you're up there with guys like, I mean, everybody talks about Jocko and Joe Rogan pushing the sport, but I mean, as far as an actor, I mean, Born a Champion was a love letter to jiu-jitsu. Is that what you're looking to do going forward too? Add a lot of the jiu-jitsu and the acting?
I mean, I wrote that from my heart. It was my love letter to jiu-jitsu. And I'm very passionate about that movie. I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to make that movie. And the strength of that movie is what got me my directorial debut, which comes out this Friday. But a martial art will always be a part of my life. It doesn't mean that I want to turn my acting or writing into solely martial arts films, but there's an element in every one. I mean, if you watch Frank and Penelope, which comes out this Friday, you're going to see so many inside jokes. There's a joke at the end. There's a fight scene at the end that you're going to go, holy shit, I can't believe we did that. You know, it's and the reference to George Dillman and his no-touch knockouts. I can't keep it out. It's what keeps me awake at night. So even though it's not directly in there, if you guys see the movie, you're going to go like, okay, high five, I get it.
I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. Well, listen, like I said, you know, really, I know we've been, you know, going back and forth and trying to set up a schedule for the podcast, and just been, you know, awesome. And I appreciate you coming on. You know, and I just, once again, really just want to say you've been an awesome inspiration, not only for me, but for a lot of people, and really appreciate what you do. And definitely going to check out that movie. You said it comes out this Friday?
Yeah, it does. It comes out this Friday in theaters. I think we're in, you know, I always make a joke. I say we're opening in every theater in the United States of America that Top Gun hasn't already booked. Leaves about 5. No, I'm kidding. I think we're in like 100 and something, but that's not a big number for, you know, how many cities are in the States. But I know there's a handful in New York and whatnot. There's, you know, in Texas, Dallas, Austin, LA, and whatnot. If you get a chance, check it out. Very soon, it'll come to streaming, like on demand, like all movies do now. They stay in the theaters for a couple months. I think by, you know, the end of July, it'll be available, you know, everywhere, Apple Movies or Amazon Prime or whatnot. But yeah, I'm proud of it. I hope everybody gets a chance to see it. If you're ever, either one of you guys, man, if you're ever out in Houston, no shit, drop me a line, man.
Awesome.
I'm in Texas all the time. I will definitely drop you a line.
Please do.
Yeah, if you're ever out in New York, I'd love to host you at my academy at Hampton Jiu Jitsu anytime, man. That'd be awesome.
I mean, you said that to me on Instagram, and no joke. When people do that, I catalog that shit. Like I Hamptons. If I ever go to the Hamptons, it's the first name that's going to pop up. I'm going to go, okay. So keep it. Absolutely. If I find myself there, you can bank on it. I will open your door.
Awesome, man. We really appreciate it. Stick around for a minute when we close this show out. Guys, make sure you give Sean a follow. Let's check out his movie coming out this Friday. And, you know, let's keep an eye on what he does in the industry and the sport. Keep an eye on his academy. Once again, thank you. Can't thank you enough. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.